Supreme Court, there is something very strange going on at the Supreme Court. And I think the reason it is going on, this strange thing, is because the three rational justices understand that the 5-person majority is now a majority made up totally of Christian fascists who are hell-bent on ending the democratic republic that we know as the United States, our little experiment here in self-governance. And Justice Sotomayor is speaking out. Yes. There is some trouble coming. And Sotomayor said recently, quote, "There's going to be a lot of disappointment in the law, a huge amount," end quote. Now, what she's talking about is, the first Monday in October is traditionally the opening of the Supreme Court's next session, which will be next Monday, obviously. And what she's referring to, of course, is the cases that are going to be pled before the Supreme Court, if that's the right term. I guess you plea your case in front of the Supreme Court, not sure, present your case, and how the 5 neo-fascists on the court are going to rule. Remember, the 5 neo-fascists are not interested in the U.S. Constitution at all. It doesn't make any difference what Amy Catholic Barrett said the other day when she gave a speech at the University of Louisville Law School. That was, a couple of weeks ago, when she proclaimed that the Supreme Court justices are not, quote, a bunch of partisan hacks, end quote. Methinks the lady doth protest too much, as Willie the Sheikh would say, but it just, like all Christian fascists, and oh my God, if there's one on the Supreme Court who really stands out, it's Amy Catholic Barrett. But like all Christian fascists, they state exactly where they are, what their position is, only they do it in a negative sentence, as if they are not there. Amy Catholic Barrett's statement of, we are not a bunch of partisan hacks on the Supreme Court. Ma'am, with all due respect, the fuck you're not. Are you kidding me? You 5? You're not partisan hacks? Uncle Clarence and Sammy the Fish and the 3 of you appointed by the most incompetent human being ever to wander the streets of the United States? Please, Amy. But I'm getting sidetracked here. A few days before the start of this next term of the Supreme Court, and it's going to be tumultuous. I haven't used that word in a long time. That's cool. I like that. Tumultuous. The Supreme Court got very divided briefly and bitterly over that Texas law that bars abortions. And Justice Sotomayor has warned an audience of law students Wednesday of this week about the frustration of having to write dissents to what the 6 neo-fascists, or the 5 neo-fascists on, the 6 neo-fascists, is it 6? Yeah, the 6 neo-fascists on the court, what the decisions that they make, and then you have 3 justices who are left to write a dissent to the bullshit that the 6 neo-fascists just decided. So this is what she said at this event that was hosted by the American Bar Association. She said, quote, "There's going to be a lot of disappointment in the law, a huge amount. Look at me. Look at my dissents," end quote. Now, earlier this month, Sotomayor wrote a scathing opinion, if you remember, when the neo-fascists on the Supreme Court allowed the Texas law to go into effect. And at the time, she called that action stunning. Yeah. But she said Wednesday, and this is according to CNN, she said, quote, "I can't change Texas's law. But you can, and everyone else who may or may not like it, you can go out there and be lobbying forces in changing laws that you don't like, end quote. And then she apparently caught herself because she was speaking about a contentious case that in effect is still before the court. And then she said, quote, I'm pointing that out because I shouldn't. No, she said, quote, I'm pointing out to that when I shouldn't be because they tell me I shouldn't. But my point is that there are going to be a lot of things you don't like and that the public can change, end quote. As a Supreme Court justice, of course, she has to be very, very cautious in what she says. Now, I would expect this happened on Wednesday. Today is Friday. I'm wondering where is the full-throated attack by the Nazi propagandists from neo-fascist media around this country and the usual scum in the U.S. House and Senate who at this point should be screaming and farting and wheezing and demanding that Sotomayor either resign or be impeached. I haven't heard anything yet. Have you? Okay, but we will, won't we? Now, the court, when it opens this coming Monday, is poised to deal with some of the biggest cases since Sotomayor was appointed to the court, and including another abortion case that is, in fact, a full frontal attack on Roe v. Wade. Plus, there's a Second Amendment dispute that could lead to this fascist Supreme Court saying that any gun restriction in this country is unconstitutional. Any gun restriction. That is looming, folks. It is, in my humble opinion here, probably months before a decision is rendered. That's exactly what this fascist Supreme Court, this Christian fascist Supreme Court, that's what they're going to rule. That the framers never intended any restrictions because the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. And the Supreme Court, the fascists on the Supreme Court, rather than seeing the Constitution as one previous justice described it, a living document that has to adjust with the times. No. These Christian fascists, these six on the Supreme Court right now, are not going to see the Constitution that way at all. When it benefits them and the Nazis in this country, they're going to hold to the idea that the Supreme Court is or the Constitution is immutable. And when the Constitution says that Congress shall make no law abridging that's freedom of speech. That there should be no infringement on the right of people to keep and bear arms. What does keep mean? Well, it means to have in your home, your place of business, your car, your truck, on your hip, in your purse, on your shoulder. I mean, it all can be interpreted by the Nazis as keep. That's what keep means to them. So those are two of the case. And it goes without saying that Sotomayor is not going to be part of the majority in either one of those. According to CNN, Columbia Law School's a professor said at a recent event sponsored by the American Constitution Society, which is a liberal organization, in other words, a rational organization, this person said, quote, Sotomayor is crafting arguments for future advocates. She is creating these roadmaps for how to restore rights to disempowered people. And in that regard, I'm looking for her to make lengthy dissents, end quote. And that's based on Sotomayor, who last April acknowledged that she was writing for the future sometimes in her dissents. Back then, she said, quote, maybe a later court will understand I was right, end quote. And then we have a professor here named David Fontana from George Washington University, law professor. He once called Sotomayor the people's justice. Yes. And he took to Twitter recently to highlight her role after the court's majority allowed that Texas law to go into effect. And according to CNN, he wrote, quote, Sotomayor has chosen a different path from Chief Justice John Roberts and others who are more moderate in their dissent, better to push and develop an alternative perspective by your vote rather than sacrifice the microphone. End quote. Now, Sotomayor's dissent at the time, she wrote at the time, quote, the court's order is stunning. Presented with an application to join a flagrantly unconstitutional law engineered to prohibit women from exercising their constitutional rights and to evade judicial scrutiny, the law, a majority of the justices have opted to bury their heads in the sand. The court should not be so content to ignore its constitutional obligations to protect not only the rights of women, but also the sanctity of its precedents and of the rule of law. End quote. Well, I think we should know now that the 6 Christian fascists on the Supreme Court, have absolutely no interest, none, zero, in preserving the sanctity of the court's precedents. Even though these 3 Trump scum were questioned specifically on that issue, will you accept settled law, settled decisions by justices who preceded you? And these 3 Trump scum either evaded the question or gave a gobbledygook answer, but they left the impression of, oh, sure, well, of course. And now you see the lies that are coming out because they're Christian fascists. God damn it, that's the reason they feel not just inclined to lie, but privileged to lie. It is their birthright. As a Christian fascist, they have an obligation to lie in order to gather in souls for the Lord, don't you know? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.